Heather Bacher. I am the market president for Burke and Herbert Bank on the Eastern Shore. I am also the chair of the Economic Development Commission this year. So I want to welcome you to our inaugural Economic Development Commission event for 2025. We have this titled Navigating the Future of Queen Anne's County. Our goal is really to unveil the vision of Queen Anne's County in 2025, along with our new 5-year economic development strategic plan. From economic growth and community development to public services and sustainability, this event will highlight the county's progress, challenges, and plans for the future. You're going to hear directly from county leadership, public and private leaders about what's on the horizon and how you can be a part of shaping the county's success. As any good event, we want to thank a few people before we get started. So first of all, I would like to thank the Chamber of Commerce for being one of our sponsors. Thank you so much. We'd like to thank the Kent Island Resort for hosting us in this beautiful venue and the breakfast that looks amazing. I can't wait to eat after I sit down. So I'd like to, can we just give a round of applause for all the staff that's here working real quick? Thank you. I'd also like to recognize Jim Riley, who is sitting there right up front, who is the past chair, who's really been behind organizing all this. So thank you for all your time and energy put into putting this event together with the economic development. I'd also like to recognize the EDC board members. So when I say your name, if you could stand up, please just hold any applause, although I know you're going to want to applaud for all of them. And before I say this, there are a few new members that I have not met, so if I say your name wrong, I greatly apologize. I'm going to do my best I can. So Shelley Gross-Wade is our vice chair. Lara Wilson, treasurer. Lee Bridgman is our secretary. Kenneth Knight, Jim Riley, John Anderis, Doug Sibler, Mason Papiam, Shauna Payne, Deanna Yule, and Larissa Costello. These guys give their time every month. Oh, and Pat Fox, hold on, you're here. It was just you're on your own line. And Pat Fox, you're on your, thank you. Every month, we meet and really have the best interest of this county in the forefront and are really trying to help move things forward. So thank you guys for all your time, because this is all volunteer. No one's getting paid to do this. So thank you. I'd also like to recognize the economic development and tourism staff. Lisa, Casey, April, Connie, Rebecca, and Heather. If you guys could stand up, this is a small but mighty group. They have so much that they do. I don't even know how they do it, so thank you. Thank you. So at this moment, we would like to ask, please silent your phones. Bathrooms are over here to the left if you need them. This is being filmed by QACTV, so if we can try to keep the talking down, keep the phones off so there's no distraction on that. We really hope you enjoy the program, and at this point, I'm going to welcome Commissioner Chris Corcorino to the podium for some opening remarks.
So they gave me some prepared remarks here, so I'll hopefully don't bungle my way through too much of this. But before we get started, I just wanted to take a moment for everybody just take a moment to think and thank all of the first responders in Queen Anne's County and the roads crew that has been out there for all these days. That wind has blown the snow back in the road. We got cars flying everywhere, but they're still out there rescuing people, trying to clear those roads, and that is sort of the backbone of the economic system in here, Queen Anne's County, because if we can't get out there and we can't get to work and we can't get kids back to school, it slows everything up. So I just want to make sure that we take the time to recognize them. Can I get a round of applause for all of those workers, please? Okay, so welcome to the county's first Economic Outlook event, where we take a comprehensive look at the coming year and reflect on the past achievements. We have a full lineup today, and we'll do our best to dive in as deep as we can, covering a vast number of topics in 2 hours. And they tell me this is going to look a lot like speed dating, but if you're married, please don't leave with somebody else. We're going to get in trouble. I want to take a moment to recognize all of my fellow commissioners who are here. If you could please stand up or raise your hand or do something. Thank you. County Administrator Todd Mon is hiding in the back there. And then we also have several of our directors and other staff. So if you can just raise your hands or stand up so everybody can see who you are. Come on, don't be shy. It's really the directors and the staff that's what makes the county work. That makes the job of a commissioner much easier because we have people who can get things done and make sure that the citizens' needs are responded to. We also have many folks from the business community here today, so we thank you all for employing our citizens and in investing in the county. As I was thinking about this today, I remember when I was a young teenager in Queen Anne's County, and I used to ride my moped up Cox Neck Road to go work at Burger King. And the economic outlook of Queen Anne's County was a lot different then. And the county has really changed a lot and developed a lot. And as a result, the county is a lot more resilient than it has been in the past. We saw that during COVID, when a lot of other counties had real financial hardship. Queen Anne's County feathered pretty well. And it's because we have a really good balance with the industry that we have in here in Keenan County and one of our biggest exports, which is the people that live here, that work across the bridge. And it has really helped us to stabilize how the local economy does, and it provides us tremendous opportunities to do great things for the citizens, to improve the parks, to improve the roads, to do additions to library. And we're going to go through a couple of those things, but I think it's important to remember those. Sometimes you're going to hear people, sort of the naysayers in the county, the ones who are going to say, well, we don't need this and we don't need that. And there's some things we don't need, and there should be a balance to what we bring to the county. But the folks in this room probably know, and the business owners know, that it's usually business owners aren't the ones who say we don't need. They say, well, what can we do with this, right? They have resilience, and they have courage, and they say, oh, there's a Target going in where the old Kmart was. They don't say, we don't need this. Someone says, you know what, I'm going to open up a butcher shop right next door, and I'm going to capture the people who are coming out of there because they're going to want something. Or they say, you know what, this is great. People aren't going to leave our county to shop and then go to other local businesses. They're going to stay here in Queen Anne's County, and they're going to shop at our local businesses here. So you guys are the resilient ones, and you take risk with your time and your money, whether it's at a local small business or inside a larger business where you work, and you are generating the revenue that we need to provide services in the county, and most importantly, the jobs that we need for Queen Anne's County citizens. So I want to make sure that we thank you for that contribution, the risk that you guys undertake to do that. It should always be appreciated and never understated. As we continue to collaborate with our partnerships, we have some priorities that we want to address going forward. Midshore landfill agreement to extend the regional landfill in Caroline County through 2042. So some of you might not know, but we have a landfill that's in Caroline County, which we share with several other counties. And there's a compact where it goes around to different counties after a period of time. Queen Anne's County was up next, but Caroline County still had some room there. And so through some very long negotiations, we secured the ability to keep that one operating so that we would use the space that's there that could be used before it would come to Queen Anne's County. That was a great deal for Caroline County. They brought in some good additional revenue for their county. It was also a great deal for Queen Anne's County because we get to push off having that landfill in Centerville for a little while longer. And so that was a real positive development. And in the spirit of cooperating with other counties to try to reduce costs in Queen Anne's County and deliver more efficient services, we are ratifying an agreement for the Midshore Regional Detention Center in Queen Anne's County. So we used to have the Eastern Prison Release Unit in Churchill. Our correctional facility is old and outdated, and it needed to either be renovated or a new one built. And a couple other counties had a similar situation. The cost for each of these counties to do something like that is staggering. But by combining our resources, we're able to lower the cost for all the counties and have one correctional facility that we would all operate. And as it so happens, when the state closed down its Eastern pre-release, there was a prison sitting there that just needs some little updating, had a brand new sewer system in it, and we were able to get that from the state for $1. So I think that's an investment that's going to go really well, and that's cooperating with our partners in other counties. Then we have support for the regional hospital in Easton. $5 million went to that new project from Queen Anne's County, and that was money that we got from Kay Hovnanian impact fees when they built Four Seasons. So $5 million towards that new hospital. So when people ask you things about, we need doctors, we need this. The way you get doctors is you got to entice them here. If you have a brand new hospital, state of the art, that's where the doctors want to work. They want to work with the newest toys. We're going to encourage more doctors to come over here, and then hopefully they will set up practices, and we're going to be improving healthcare in Queen Anne's County as a result of that. We continue to work through government transparency and encourage citizen involvement in boards and commissions like you see here with economic development. We're continuing our partnerships with MDOT, MDTA, and SHA to mitigate traffic. Not going to get rid of it. We live on 50. This is just a fact of life. But to try to mitigate that and to finalize plans for a new bridge crossing, which is essential to Queen Anne's County's economic security. Working to continue to expand our pedestrian trails and get a bridge, pedestrian bridge over Route 50 so we can connect the two trails. Some of our accomplishments, we have brought the Housing Authority back under the county umbrella. It had to be spun off years ago when the county had severe economic downturn. And frankly, it was not up to snuff. It was not providing the services that particularly the seniors who live in the Housing Authority should come to expect from Queen Anne's County. We now have that back under umbrella, doing a lot of renovations, improvement to those buildings. Former Commissioner Stevie Wilson took the lead of the Housing Authority, put in a top-notch maintenance program, and the seniors love him. I think he has groupies over there whenever they have a Housing Authority meeting. It's been an incredible turnaround on that. 4-H critical infrastructure. Upper Regional Shore Council, which Commissioner Wilson and myself sit on, was able to bring millions of dollars into the county for grants, and a lot of that went into improving the 4-H park. If you were there for the 4-H fair this summer, you probably saw that the pathways are all better. There's some better drainage. Hopefully the Wi-Fi works a little bit better. We've expanded the public library on Kent Island. The regional hospital that I spoke, the groundbreaking has occurred. And we've also had support for a lot of nonprofits that provide great services to Queen Anne's County, Haven Ministries, Tides of Grace, the Kennard Museum. We have extension of the public sewer down to southern Cat Island, which helps with those failing septic systems, and so we're not seeping hazardous stuff into the bay, helps to do our part to clean the bay. We opened a new YMCA center with active aging senior center, the new skate park and turf fields for the kids, as well as new parks in Churchill. We're expanding broadband services in Queen Anne's County, with more competition coming in so that we're going to have better service and more options for the citizens, and a public water line extension to the Kent Island Shopping Center. And I think Heather's probably telling me that I'm almost out of time. So with that, thank you all for coming out. I want to introduce, we have tons of good things we can keep saying about the county. I want to thank you all for coming out and introduce Commissioner Jack Wilson for our next moment. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. I have been tasked with talking about how the legislative changes, both at the state and federal level, are going to affect us here in Queen Anne's County. And in short words, God only knows. I mean, that's literally where we're at with both levels of government. But I'm going to take a stab at it. But first, I'm kind of going to give you a background. One of the reasons Heather asked me to speak today is because I've recently become the president of MACO. For you that don't know it, it's the Maryland Association of Counties, and we work collaboratively across all 23 county jurisdictions and the city of Baltimore. Basically, we work as the Maryland Constitution was originally founded: one county, one jurisdiction, one vote. So as you can see, throughout the state, we have roughly 16 rural jurisdictions. So when it comes to MACO, which by the way is also the largest lobbying group within the state of Maryland when you take the sheer numbers, the rural counties have a say. So when we go to testify for legislation, a lot of the flair, a lot of the testimony and the steering of the bills comes from more of a rural conservative perspective, both fiscally, policy-wise, and things like that. So it's important for our rural counties to stay engaged in this for that reason, because it gives us a true voice across all 24 jurisdictions, sans what the delegates and senators do in Annapolis. The things that MACO does and the things that MACO doesn't do, there's kind of a misconception. MACO does not weigh in on every single bill that is put forth in the legislature, on the Senate or House. What we do concentrate on is bills that will directly affect the fiscal, and/or autonomy of the counties. And by that I mean if it's a mandated spending, if it's a mandated policy that must be put in effect, we will rail against that if it takes away from the ability of the local government to perform that duty. What we do strive to do, and because obviously most of you in here know the makeup in Annapolis is basically one-sided, so what we try to steer bills towards is more of an enabling, what we call enabling. So if it's a bill you want where you want to provide a tax credit or you want to provide business incentives, we push more towards saying that the counties have the ability to do it versus you are mandated to do it. And we're all aware of some of the spending mandates that are required by the state government, the biggest obviously being our education system, and we're going to get into that. What I'm going to try to do is hit maybe 5 topics real quick, give you the 30,000-foot view, because we've got some great panels that are pretty much going to expand on all these topics. So we can go to the first slide. AI. So how many in here know what AI really is? What's the one benefit of AI, right? In business. We're all business people. What is it? It's the E word, efficiency. AI is made to make businesses and life more efficient. That is the biggest pro of it. Now, for those of you who are engaged in social media, you know what artificial news and things like that can do. That's one of the things going forward that we have to avoid in AI, and that's the fact that we use it to do everything. We still have to have human contact. I think we saw during COVID how much of an effect it had where we weren't being able to get together and stand face to face and do business face to face. It affected how we've moved forward. AI is just going to be a backdrop for most businesses to move paperwork faster. Maybe people are going to get put out of work. I've heard that as being a con of it. But for the sake of efficiency within business, we all want that because that all falls to the bottom line. I will get into, I think, one of my other topics. I'm going to get into the one big con of AI that we're all not seeing, but we are all going to feel, every single person in this room, every single person in the country is going to feel. Maryland has invested a lot in AI. For those of you who are familiar and may have seen in the news, there's a specific power line getting ready to try to go from basically Pennsylvania to Virginia. I think it's PHRM is the acronym for it. But it's a 500,000 kV power line that is being proposed to strictly power the data centers in Ashburn, Virginia. And they're trying to sell it to Marylanders, and I don't want to get too off topic. They're trying to sell it to Marylanders as it's going to help the power grid in Maryland. Unfortunately, there's not a single substation coming off of that power line as it's proposed today, so I'm not sure how that's going to effectively help Maryland. But anyway, moving forward, that's AI in a nutshell. So here's one, and I know Heather's going to touch a lot on this one. The one big thing I will say about the economic development incentives, and the one thing I hear from other not only delegates, but commissioners, council people around the state is there really hasn't been a great accountability for stuff that's been put in place as economic development incentives. In other words, we're not seeing the metrics. We're not finding out what that stuff actually do, whether it's a tax incentive, the enterprise zones, the opportunity zones, all those things have been put into place, but there's really no information flowing back to the counties or the state for that matter that says, is this working? And granted, it's a lot of tools in the toolbox that are out there, but if we're not utilizing them, the theory is, and the thought process is amongst a lot, is okay, let's move on from them. Let's think outside the box and bring new ideas in and work with them, because a stagnant tool, a rusty tool in the toolbox really does no good. So from the economic development standpoint and the programs that are in place, that's one of the biggest things that as commissioners we want to see. We want to see, when we approve these things to be used, whether it's EDIF or whatever the case may be, we want to see a metric on the backside that says, yes, this is working, or no, it's not. Because I'd rather move on, and I'm sure most of you do in a business, you want to move on from something that's not working and move on to something that is working to help your bottom line. So that's, and I know, like I said, Heather's really going to give a bit on. Okay, this is one that has been bannered around, and it's actually had 3 bills within the state legislature recently, the last 3 sessions. Flexibility of local revenue structures. So what that means is, and we're all in here, we understand taxes, we know property taxes, we know income taxes. When we build our budget, based on the way the state defined it, originally is our property tax should 100% cover our education funding. We should not use any income tax for education funding. At this juncture, and Jeff will be able to highlight that, we can't do that. So what we've gone to through MACO, and this has been a MACO initiative, we've said to the state, look, give each jurisdiction the ability to look at what their economy is, how their economy works, where we can create other revenue. And I know everybody's thinking in their mind, by revenue you think tax. Well, there's already a tax, right? But if you can increase income, you're naturally increasing income tax. If you increase property values, you are increasing property tax. So you're not targeting a new tax. What you're doing is you're trying to lift everything up. That we need more opportunities to look at some of that stuff. One of the ones we've talked about here, and Jody, hold your ears, is that in the Narrows specifically, we have all these beautiful restaurants, we have hotels now, we have all that. Granted, we do get the hotel tax in the Narrows and throughout the county for that matter. But one of the things we've looked at is we do have a very large transient population that files through the Narrows in the summertime. We all see them when they're on the roads heading there, stopping there. If you stop there on boat, we have boats coming in. One of the things we get nothing out of in the Narrows is alcohol or food tax as a county. One of the things I've looked at, and because we already have a taxing district set up, which is the Narrows, is that if we put 2 cents onto the beverages and food sold in the Narrows, the rough conservative estimate is it would generate around $1.9 million for the county, and nobody in this room is ever going to look at their bill and see 2 cents on a beverage and or food. So things like that are what every other county in the state and jurisdictions looking at is what do we have, what's our niche, where can we capture increased revenues without making it a burden on the local economy. So that bill is in again this year. We started out 3 years ago with 4 items on the list, and now with all the counties in different brainstorming sessions, we have 26 different items right now. And again, these would all, in the bill, they're labeled as enabling items. So if you wanted to embrace them, use them in your county or your jurisdiction to help with revenue, you would be able to. It has not made it out of committee the last 2 years. The first year, it never even got read. So hopefully this year, it'll get a little more steam. I don't foresee it passing this year, but I think as we look, and Jeff, when we talk about blueprint and funding like that, I think you're going to get a little bit more interest in it because counties are struggling with how we're going to close that budget gap on the education. And finally, right? Oh no, not finally yet. Advanced solar siting. So if you're down here in South County, you don't see a lot of solar, right? North County right now we have 2 major projects with a 3rd one underway. In the last 3 years, we've had bills that have come that have basically attacked the county's autonomy. So obviously this was a huge initiative for MACO at the legislative level to stop what was going on. And in a nutshell, what they were doing is the state was saying, you're going to let solar go wherever solar wants to go in your county. You're not going to be able to say what it looks like, what it smells like, what it feels like. It's going to go where they come in and say, I am going to buy or lease this farm from this farmer. I'm putting in 500 acres of solar. There's nothing you can do about it. We fought back. We've got some concessions, but unfortunately, there was a lawsuit back in 2019 that set the precedence that counties could not do that. Washington County lost a rather large lawsuit that said you cannot tell solar companies where they can and can't go. So what we're fighting for this year as our last-ditch effort to keep some of the autonomy within the counties is to basically keep the siting, which is our planning and zoning department would have the ability to tell the solar companies what the buffers look like, what the setbacks look like. So these things don't become eyesores in the county. We have a beautiful stretch of land between the bridge and Delaware that is not littered with solar panels. And I would hate for someday that to be what we see from the bridge to Delaware. So we're going to fight hard again this year. I think right now that it looks like we have a good in, and we may get all this back, and we will all chalk that up to a win. I know Jenny Rote's in here from the Ag Extension, and I've worked with her on a lot of this, and even the farmers don't want to see this. Granted, it's hard to resist from an economical standpoint. Where a farmer may get $800 per acre for farming it, they're getting $3,500 an acre per year for 20 years. So from an economic standpoint, if you're a farmer and you don't want to farm anymore, it's very lucrative. But again, we do not want to lose that local control over what that looks like. And we do not want to lose thousands and thousands of acres of farmland, because let's face it, we all have to eat at some point, and our corn and our wheat and our soybean is all part of the food chain. So that's another initiative we're working on. Next one. There we go, that's the one. State budget shortfall. So anybody that's even woke up in the morning in the last month has seen this on the news at some way, shape, or form. It's even made it on social media, so I know everybody's seen it. The state has projected this coming fiscal year, and again, Jeff's going to have a lot more numbers, to be at about a $2.7 billion structural deficit. And by structural, that means they don't have enough money to pay $2.7 billion of their bills as they stand going into this next budget year. The governor has announced $2 billion in cuts. Haven't seen the facts on that, but my guess would be that's $2 billion in cuts on increases, not $2 billion right off the top. So I would think that by the time it's all said and done, depending on what they decide for future spending and whether we have any more revenue downturns, that could grow above $3 billion in this coming budget session. Don't be fooled. This is what everybody's going to talk about in this legislative session. I was asked to say what's going to take up this legislative session. It's this. $3 billion is a huge budget deficit. The last time the state saw anything close to this was after the 2008-2009 recession. So we are in a huge deficit going in. The governor, to his credit, has said he does not want to increase taxes, because the other side of that, and again, this is something that Heather's going to talk about, I'm sure, is his initiative came out. He wants to not increase taxes, but he wants to help economic development as his priority, to increase the revenue stream into the state to try to close this gap. Nobody in here is in a panacea to say that that is going to close a $2 billion gap, but you know what? We've got to try everything to do it. This is directly tied to the last slide, and the biggest reason we're having this budget shortfall is the Blueprint for Maryland, which is our education funding. Again, unless you've been asleep at the wheel for the last 5 years, you've heard about the Blueprint, formerly called the Kerwin Commission. It has a huge price tag, a total spend by the time it's implemented in 2034 now, I guess it is roughly an additional $6 billion in spending at the state level. That does not count what the counties are going to have to put in additionally. Real quick example before I get out of here. Queen Anne's County, when we did this back in 2018, when it first came out, we had a sheet that showed what Queen Anne's County, where our budget would be after the 10 years implementation of Kerwin. We were shown that our school budget, the county's portion, would roughly be $79 million per year after 10 years. We are officially 4 years in, and the Queen Anne's County this year we were at $78 million. So obviously the numbers are wrong. We put in 8.5% over the last 2 years increased funding to the school systems, which roughly worked out to be about $15.5 million additional dollars into local school funding. Our GDP, and again, tell me if I'm wrong, Jeff, we're roughly in the 3.5–4% range on average. So it doesn't take a mathematician to figure out that those numbers are not going to be able to work. What we're asking for and what we're hearing may happen is there may be a push on the brakes here in this upcoming year for the Blueprint, which would obviously help all the counties. Queen Anne's County, knock on wood, we're in good shape. We're good for another year where we sit. But after that, it's iffy as to what direction we'd have to take. And again, that ties to the fact that our property tax is supposed to cover all of our education. And right now, it does not do it because of the cost. So I'm not taking any questions now because I'm going to get out of the way and let all these more informed panelists kind of highlight these and a lot of other great information. So thank you all, and thanks for being here.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Jeff Rank, Finance Director for the county. I'm here to present some slides on the fiscal foundation and future Queen Anne's County. So buckle up, you're in for a wild ride. Topics to be covered include an overview of the county's financial stability, prior year financial outcomes, our current financial position, a few slides on how we compare to other counties in the state, and some commentary on forecasts and projections in the upcoming years. I hope that these topics will give you a broad perspective of the county's financial management strategies and plans for sustainable growth. First of all, there's going to be several charts and tables in the presentation that unfortunately most of you will not be able to see. We'll post this on the county's website this afternoon. Financial stability. What are key characteristics of financial stability? Sufficient reserves and the maintenance of appropriate fund balances, predictable revenue streams, controlled expenditures, adherence to financial policies, long-term planning, strong credit ratings, and transparent reporting. All of these things contribute to uninterrupted service delivery of essential services, builds confidence among taxpayers, investors, and credit rating agencies, bolster our crisis preparedness and long-term sustainability. These next slides will show how we are forming this foundation of sound fiscal governance in Queen Anne's County. Oops. The county has been fortunate enough to have both elected and staff leaders over the past few decades who have stressed the importance of financial stability in ensuring long-term fiscal health. Practices that we have employed include quarterly reporting of financial status to the commissioners in our Spending Affordability Committee, preparing regular projections of revenues and expenditures, strict compliance with generally accepted accounting principles and the auspices of the Government Accounting Standards Board, which has resulted in the receipt of the GFOA's annual financial reporting award for 24 years running, and through the ongoing development of a multi-year capital improvement plan. First, I want to discuss our rainy day fund. It was established to manage contingencies of an emergency nature, such as funding to address natural disasters or major unforeseen economic downturns, to ensure we have a continuity of operations during these types of major system failures. This fund has a minimum balance requirement of 8% of our general fund operating revenues. In addition to that, we also have a separate revenue stabilization fund, which sets aside funds not to exceed 5% of general fund operating revenues to be used for special emergencies prior to the use of the rainy day fund or for other minor emergency one-time expenses. As an example, if income tax revenues unexpectedly drop suddenly, these funds could be utilized to help the county maintain customary levels of service for a period of time until we could slowly ratchet back on expenses and help float us. Next, our debt policy is basically the top section of this busy slide. We are required to keep total debt below 2.5% of taxable assessable base and 8% of debt per capita, and total annual debt service below 10% of total general fund expenditures. As you can see, perhaps not, we are forecast to continue to be well below those thresholds over the next 5 years. Queen Anne's County maintains strong credit ratings from the 3 major rating agencies, reflecting its solid financial position and prudent fiscal management. Fitch ratings, with Fitch, we hold a AAA rating with a stable outlook, indicating the highest credit quality and minimal risk. With S&P Global Ratings, we're listed among U.S. counties with a AAA rating and stable outlook, also denoting exceptional financial stability and is their highest rating. With Moody's, we have a AA1 rating, which indicates high quality, low risk obligations, reflecting the county's strong financial position and prudent fiscal management. These ratings signify the county's robust economic base, consistent operating performance, and effective financial management practices. Next, we'll quickly give a summary of where we ended up last year. Note that our annual comprehensive financial report has been completed for this past fiscal year and is available online on the county's website. General fund revenue, we ended last year, which was FY24, and the second column from the right, with revenues slightly short of $200 million, with both property and income tax revenues remaining strong. However, you can see a slight continuing decline in other local taxes, which are primarily our recordation and transfer taxes, which show a drop-off in home sales since COVID, which we are just now beginning to recover. Property and income tax make up the lion's share of our revenues, which was 84% of revenues last year. The little chart at the bottom shows property and income tax growth over the past 15 years. On the expenditure side, we ended last year at $191 million. By far, our largest expenditure is for the education system, which is 43% of our total county expenses. Our second largest expense is public safety, which includes sheriff's office, emergency services, and detention center. What are the current status of things? The charts on the right show where the money comes from and where the money goes. Again, showing property and income tax as our main sources of revenue, and education, other agencies, and public safety comprising our largest expenditures. Other agencies include State's Attorney's Office, Volunteer Fire Support, Circuit Court, Elections Board, among others. Highlights for this year include static property and income tax rates, $10 million projected revenue growth, funding for the Board of Education, $7 million above maintenance of effort, a 3% COLA for county staff, and $2 million addition for public health and safety efforts. I wanted to touch upon real property assessment increases quickly to show the steady increase year over year since 2015. The average increase in assessments has been 5% for the past 10 years, showing that for the most part, properties in the county are steadily increasing in value. For those of you who are county residents, you may have seen your assessment increase upwards of 20% in the past year or two. But as is described on the left side of the screen, the county does not conduct your triennial assessment. The state does. It helps keep it an independent evaluation. And for principal residents, the county's homestead tax credit caps your annual increase at 5%. The tiny map at the bottom just shows the assessment districts and when reassessments will occur. Regarding our debt, the ending 2024 general obligation debt balance was $113.1 million, which is lower than the 2017 ending balance. The county has continued to issue debt in accordance with the debt policy and utilize any available revenue source as potential funding for capital projects in an effort to limit bond issuance amounts. The projected bond issuance in fiscal 26, which will be this fall, is for 3 fiscal years and provides funding for capital projects in the 23, 24, and 25 capital budgets. For years 27 to 2030, the projected bond issuance amounts tied to the capital budget out years. There are several large capital projects in the planning in the out years, which we will look at momentarily. Note, however, these projects are included for planning purposes only and can be adjusted as part of the annual budget process. Any changes, increases, or decreases could affect the projected bond issuance amounts shown. Next, this slide just shows where our real property tax rate has been over the past 20 years. We've been consistent since 2012 and even incorporated a decrease in 2023. The next few slides, I wanted to compare Queen Anne's County amongst the other 23 counties in Maryland along a few important measures. Carrying over from the previous chart, we are currently the second lowest property tax rate in the state, and you can see the range of rates and where we stand. Baltimore City with the highest rate at about 2.25, and we're second down there at 83 cents. Next is per capita income, which can relate to the economic well-being in a county. Queen Anne's is 5th highest in the state and 4th highest in terms of per capita income growth over the past 5 years. High per capita income suggests a relatively affluent population and often correlates to a higher standard of living. It is also a signal of robust economic activity, including prevalence of business opportunities and more active job creation. This chart shows the unemployment rate for the Eastern Shore counties in the state of Maryland. As noted at the bottom, Queen Anne's County has had the lowest unemployment rate on the Eastern Shore for over 10 years. This can be attributed to several different factors, such as proximity to Baltimore and DC job markets, a higher than average percentage of government employment. The implication here would be that we have a higher workforce utilization and a stable, experienced workforce, actively contributing to the local economy and higher levels of consumer spending. With this slide, I wanted to exhibit our exposure to any potential state budget cuts that would affect county government operations. Especially during years when the state projects a large deficit, they could cut funds for our roads and transportation operations, health departments, social services, police and fire, and emergency services aid, as well as various grants for capital projects. Further, they can increase charges. They charge the county for the court system and other state agencies that we have to help pay for. This chart shows we have relatively low dependency on state funds, but cuts could still significantly impact many individual important programs. Finally, we wanted to present some thoughts on our outlook for the next few years. Economic drivers. These are just some of the things we try to put thought toward and questions we try to consider when looking forward. The first is population growth. Population trends affect service demand, tax base, and infrastructure needs. Who are we attracting? Are the new residents retirees, young professionals, or families? Their demographics will influence our planning priorities such as schools, housing, and emergency services. Workforce growth. Some might consider an expanding workforce as having a role in sustaining economic activity. There's economic growth. We try to highlight the importance of job creation and the types of jobs available. That is high wage versus low wage jobs. Try to recognize how a diversified economy can protect against sector-specific downturns. And we need to consider what the role of government procurement is in supporting local businesses. With real estate, what is the role of real estate development, both residential and non-residential, on property tax revenue and the housing affordability? For residential, recognizing the need to meet housing demand while balancing growth management. And for non-residential, what is commercial and industrial development's contribution to employment and fiscal stability? And finally, there is personal income. We try to link personal income trends to broader economic indicators like employment rates and wage growth. And these topics are by no means exhaustive, but have a role in considering future economic trends in the county. The FY25 revenue estimate is based upon current receipts the county has received at this time and projected throughout the remainder of the fiscal year. Some revenue sources are more predictable than others, and this is a moving target until the end of the year. For example, income tax can fluctuate more commonly than property tax, which can be estimated based on set assessment values. The county analyzes revenue on a continual basis and updates forecast amounts as needed. As of this time, we are expecting this year's revenues to exceed last year's by 2%, and this year's expenditures to exceed last year's by 1%. The FY26 forecast is based on the FY25 estimates and also any known or expected changes for the next year, such as inflation, staffing changes, and Board of Education estimates. The next two slides show our current forecast model. This slide provides both historical revenue data along with forecasted amounts for the next 5 years, giving a long-term view of potential financial performance. Forecasts such as this are helpful in making informed decisions about overall resource allocations based on anticipated revenue growth. In addition, a 5-year revenue forecast also provides a basis for budgeting and managing cash flow over a longer period. As you can see, the 5-year forecast for county revenue shows growth on all major revenue streams. And as mentioned a few slides back, there are various economic growth factors to consider when analyzing the data. The county takes those factors into consideration along with the historical data in creating a reasonable yet conservative approach to forecasting revenue. This next slide is similar to the revenue, except it's showing the forecasted expenditures by category. This is a financial projection that estimates the county's anticipated expenses over the next 5 years, providing an outlook on future operational costs like salaries, benefits, debt service, current debt service, allocations to the Board of Education, and other necessary expenditures. We use the historical data and current trends in creating the forecast, which then provides data for the county to plan for potential challenges and opportunities. As you can see on this slide, although the revenue projections are positive, the expenditure projections surpass revenue beginning in fiscal year 27. That doesn't mean we're planning a deficit. It just means we have some decisions to make budgetarily as we move forward. Here we've identified 3 areas where we may face potential challenges. The first is potential structural issues. Funding the educational blueprint without considering a review of current programming, funding major construction projects during periods of high interest rates and relatively high inflation, and funding increasing healthcare costs and state mandated benefit costs. Secondarily are the potential intergovernmental funding issues. How will the state's projected $2.7 billion deficit affect the county? Highway user revenue, police aid, county funding for state agencies, state share of education funding. Federal funding from and to various departments and programs may be affected by the new administration's decisions as well. These would include transportation funds, aging and social program funds, FEMA and disaster preparation funds. And finally, income tax revenues, which can be volatile. Queen Anne's County is more dependent on income taxes generated from residents who are government employees than most other counties. How will the state cuts affect state employee residents? And what changes will the new federal administration bring to the status of the roughly 1,200 federal employees and X number of federal contractors who reside in the county? And this slide shows the 10 largest county capital projects that are currently in the proposal or planning phase, starting with the new regional detention center at $25.3 million and going to trail development and maintenance to $3.3 million. These amounts are not total project amounts, but rather the total for these planning years, 26 through 30. If you add up the amounts on the slide, it totals about $100 million. Again, these are the 10 largest projects, not the entire capital project list for the county. There are numerous other projects for renovations, emergency services equipment, volunteer fire funding, Board of Education projects, parks, and so on. So as you can see, we've got several important projects under review in the pipeline. So now we've made it to the last slide. We wanted to show you where you could access more information, including the location of our most recent annual financial report, which has an additional 206 pages of very dense material you may enjoy. My contact information is on the right. Feel free to contact me or any of the other finance staff with any questions or comments. I'd also like to quickly introduce and thank 2 staff members, Nicole Hepfer and Karen Rogers, who diligently keep all these numbers straight. And thank you.
I just wanted to thank Jeff again. It's really hard to get up here and present financial information, but what you should definitely take away from that is our commissioners have worked really hard to make sure we have a strong fiscal foundation, and we have a strong group of individuals here that make sure that we are spending wisely and that we're planning for our future because, as you've heard from some of the others that have come before, there's a lot of capital projects that are on the way, as well as some uncertainty with the state budget. So good to know. So while we fix our little glitches here, I'm Heather Tonelli with Queen Anne's County Economic and Tourism Development. I'm the director, born and raised here forever, thank goodness. And I've been here for the past 5 years, and it's been a blessing that I've had the opportunity to work where I live. I brought a little prop with me before I get started. How many of you knows what one of these things are and has ever had to use one? It's a map. It's a map. And back in the day, for the younger generation that doesn't know, before we had MapQuest and Google Maps and those sort of things, we had to pull one of these things out, and you had to know where you were going, know where you came from, and where you're going, and then you better have a gosh darn good co-pilot and able to be able to help you as you move through. So my point being is that I have some wonderful co-pilots that I just wanted to take a minute to introduce, and although we have talked about them earlier today, it's just really important. We have Rebecca Clark, who's our Economic Development Administrator. If you guys can stand for me back in the back. April Plummer, who's our Marketing Administrator and DMO. We have Connie Dean, who's our Workforce Development Administrator. Lisa Gallo, who's our office coordinator, and our newest member of our team, Casey Schweitzer, who's our admin assistant. Without them, everything that you see and that we talk about today would not be possible. They're amazing co-pilots, and they're a great team. And the cool part about this week is every time we were around each other and saw each other, we were like, tomorrow's going to be great. Tomorrow's going to be great. And so far, I think today is great. And I just wanted to thank them for all that they've done. So within my 10 minutes, I'm going to try to talk fast, and I'm thankful that you all are from the Eastern Shore because I get my dialect going, and when I talk fast, and I talk like an Eastern Shore person, so you all should be able to understand me, where some of the places I worked for before, not so much when I start to talk fast. I wanted to talk a little bit about our past, present, and future from the economic development perspective. And the first thing you see here is a map, and yes, it's small. You don't need to know the details other than the primary color is green. So when you look at our land mass in Queen Anne's County and how we are zoned, we are primarily green. We're agriculture, residential, countryside, and that's the way it's going to stay. Our primary growth areas are obviously on Kent Island. You can see a little bit of color through there, and that's why I wanted to show you this map so that you could see where we were. This is our past, our present, and our future. We have 414 miles of shoreline. 43% of our ag land is preserved. We have 96,000 acres presently, and I think that there's a goal to have 100. But again, good to kind of see where we are and where we're going. This is the base assessments. You heard Jeff talk a little bit about that, and why that's important is to look at where our tax base is coming from. And from the economic development perspective, we're looking at our commercial property tax base. As you saw on the prior map, we're primarily green, so you're talking agriculture, residential. Our current commercial property tax base is just about at 11%, which is higher than it was before. An ideal goal when you're looking at larger counties would be at a 30% tax rate. We're never going to get there, nor do we want to, but we do hope to see that commercial tax base increase as far as its value over time. Population, again, where were we, where are we now, and where we're going. Back in 1970, I'm again born and raised here, grew up on Kent Island, we had a population of about 18,000 people. 1970, not that long ago. I was born a few years after that. In 2001, we were up to 21,000. 2001, 41,000. And 2019, when I started here, we were at 50,000. And 2024, we're close to 53,000, and we plan to, by 2028, being at 55,000. So we've seen the growth. We're the fastest growing county on the Eastern Shore and the second fastest growing within the state. So that's something to keep in mind. Another important factor to keep in mind as we look at where we are is who's moving here, who's coming. And if you can see on the bottom here, what you need to see is the colors. This is a chart that shows our population from 2001 to 2028 and what the makeup of that is. You know, what are the age groups? And if you see over here to the right, which is the 55 and above, and the light blue columns, that means that those that will be moving here or are projected to move here are going to be over 55, and in the larger groups are 64 to 69. So we need to keep that in mind as we look at what kind of services and amenities do we need to have here, what kind of housing will be here, and how we affect that, and do we want to have a more diversified population as far as age groups, ethnicities, all of those things. So it's good to know who's coming and how to prepare for them. The top industries of the past, I'm talking 1970s through early 2000s, well, a little before 2000s, would be obviously our maritime fisheries, maritime and fisheries and agriculture. Those are the core. They're the core of the state from the very beginning. If you look at our state seal, it's got a waterman and a fisherman on it. Those are foundational for the county and are always going to be something that we support and are important, especially when you think, one, that our land mass is largely agriculture. That's extremely important, as well as we're surrounded by the Chesapeake Bay, and so our watermen will continue to be important. Looking forward, looking at industry, now we know what was in the past, what's in the future. There's a couple different ways to look at what's the largest industry in Queen Anne's County. You can look at it by jobs, and you can look at it by gross domestic product or gross regional product. How much money do they produce within the county? As far as jobs go, our largest one is the government, and the government includes Queen Anne's County, our towns, education, the college, accommodations and food services, no surprise, that's our tourism and hospitality industry, retail trade, construction, manufacturing, and those have trended for quite a while to be that case. As far as the amount of money produced, or GRP, wholesale trade is number one, and the interesting thing is that wholesale trade is a very broad NICS code, includes housing. Government is second in line. Yes, they produce a valuable product. Retail trade, manufacturing, and construction. You will notice that you don't see agriculture and maritime on there, but that's not to certainly say that those aren't important and that we won't support them and that they support our economy. And many times it's also important to understand that there's a multiplier effect or an economic impact that you don't see from just jobs and from just how much money they produce. They perpetually create jobs, as well as those that are employed by those companies are then spending money in our economy. So it's definitely something to keep in mind holistically. Now on your tables, as well as in the back before you leave, these are hot off the presses. I'm not going to go over everything in them, but I do ask that you take them with you. It's our economic development scorecard, second time that we've done this, and we hope to continue, but I'm just going to highlight a few of these things. In 2024, year to date, because some things still haven't processed yet to update, we've had commercial property sales of about $30 million, which is less than it was last year, but you have to think about commercial development. Nothing happens quickly. Nothing happens overnight. There's trends. Sometimes when a property's purchased, it then takes, sometimes 3 to 5 years before you see investment and land moved and those. So there's going to be an ebb and flow, so this is not concerning that last year there was more. And that's, again, not the final number, but what we could get through November. $77.8 million in the value of new construction per the permits that have been pulled through planning and zoning, and that is up quite a bit from last year. Again, ebb and flow, but it's about a 90% increase over the prior year. Our median home prices are quite high. They're about $539,000, almost $540,000 in 2024, and that's an 8% increase over 23. And our commercial tax base, as I mentioned before, is about at 10.8%, which is 11% over the prior years. You heard Jeff mention that we just had some assessments recently, so sometimes that might be the reason why you see that increase. And another reason why I want to point these out, and I kind of say within our department sometimes that our economy seems to identify more with the Western Shore, although our quality of life and the way and the things that we love here on Queen Anne's County the Eastern Shore. So we're blessed in the fact that many of the great things that we have to offer that makes us all want to live here, our quality of life and the easy way of life that we have, but we are also blessed in the fact that our economy mirrors some of our Western Shore neighbors, and we're lucky for that as well. All these stats are within your economic development scorecard, things that we look at every year to see how our economy is doing. I do want to reiterate, and Commissioner Corcorino said before, that many times these things that are generated, I'm not generating them, our county staff is not generating them. It's the employees that work here, it's the businesses that start here, it's all of those that are really driving the economy, and we're thankful for that. Two stats that I want to point out is we had a 19% growth in the number of businesses within the county, which is pretty good, and the majority of those were businesses with 1 to 4 employees. That doesn't account for businesses that have started that don't have employees because they're harder to track, but we were really excited to see that number. Jeff had mentioned we have the 5th highest per capita, so again, our income is strong. And our GDP is at $2.7 million, and then that's the value of all the goods and services that are created in Queen Anne's County for a year. And that's a 2023 number. It always takes about a year for those to come out. And what we watch for that is that there's growth, and it's going to ebb and flow as well. There's, when we have large projects or companies moving into the area, you're going to see that number spike up, and then there's going to be an ebb and flow. But overall, what we want to always see is that that's consistent and that we see some growth. I'm going to skip over. Ooh. Sorry about that. Let me go back real quick. And the last. Ooh. Almost there. Thing that I wanted to share is a forecast. The great thing about what we heard so far at the end of the year when we went to our Mako retreats and through the state's economic development is that they're focusing on economic development, and we're like, woo, finally it's our turn to shine. And so we're really excited about the fact that they see the value of what the economic developers do. But there is a risk, as our Commissioner Wilson had mentioned, that although they want to see us grow and economic developers are ready to do that, without the tools in the toolbox, it may limit us in our ability to attract businesses here, especially if we're unable to have the enterprise zone that we have. And thank goodness we have a economic development incentive fund. So we have some tools, but it's going to be really important that we have some tools in the toolbox to be able to help support that growth. We have an industry focus in the future on professional services, manufacturing and wholesale, trades, construction, obviously the cores, as I've mentioned before, tourism, as well as maritime and the fisheries, transportation and warehousing, agriculture, maritime. Our unemployment rates, we expect those to be steady. Since I've been here, we've always been second or first or right in line, and they ebb and flow. But overall, we're pretty strong there. We have companies looking for employees every day. We believe that our commercial growth will occur through redevelopment. We have several projects that are currently being redeveloped or need to be. We have expansion of existing businesses. We work really hard to support the businesses that are here through creating jobs, growing, expanding, so that's where we're going to focus. New business starts. And there are several projects in queue that we will certainly support. And the last part of our forecast is we do have a lack of shovel-ready properties here, especially in our growth area, which is the Kent Island to Queenstown area. And so we see even through our comp plan that there's a need to focus up north should the towns want it, the municipalities want it, because some of them do have infrastructure capacity, do have commercial properties, and we want to support that growth as long as that's what they want. That's it I have for you today. We will have questions at the end. I want to thank everybody for coming. We have some more panels coming up, so we're not done yet. But make sure to grab one of these. It goes into a lot of detail of what we're doing as a whole, and that will also be online for later. Next, we're going to have our panel come up to talk about our strategic plan that will be rolled out in the next year or so. So we could have the next panel come up. Commissioner McLaughlin and a few of the others. Thank you.
Thank you again, everyone, for spending a beautiful Thursday morning with us. Just like to thank all of you for coming out. And can we just give a round of applause for all the speakers so far? They've done a great job. I have the honor of unveiling the economic development strategic priorities. And, or really, let me rephrase that. I get to introduce the people who put together the strategic plan for the next 5 years and their 5 priorities. So I have the honor of sitting next to Connie Dean, who's our Workforce Development Administrator. You all know Heather Tonelli, who is the Director of Economic Development and Tourism. And Rebecca Clark is our Economic Development Administrator, and April is our Marketing Administrator. Can we give a hand for those ladies? So as I mentioned, it's a 5-year strategic plan that they're going to talk about right now, and there's 5 pillars. Before I get to them, though, I just wanted to say how we understand, the commissioners understand, the economic team, how difficult it is to have a business and make a profit and make payroll. I just sold my insurance agency a few months ago, so I get it. So you are the engine of our county. You make the payroll. You create the jobs. Amazon doesn't create the jobs. Small business, by far, creates more jobs than any of the large corporations. So thank you for being here and spending time, and thank you for investing in our beautiful county. We are the best county in the state, bar none, because of folks like you, and because of our economic team, our employees that work for the county, our DPW, our Parks and Rec teams, everyone in the county government, and we're just very grateful for you. So with that said, maintaining a sense of community and improving quality of life, Rebecca is going to share with you her thoughts about it.
Do my best here. You can hear me and see me. I feel like I'm so short. So maintaining a sense of community and enhancing quality of life. One of the biggest surprises, my favorite surprises when I started in economic development, having worked in human services for the first half of my career, was learning about what economic development really is and how it's so much more than just business recruitment and making deals. Quality of life is a really big focus for us and one of my favorites. So our new strategic plan really emphasizes maintaining our unique identity in Queen Anne's County, which is a beautiful place to live and work. And enhancing the quality of life through access to our essential services and really thoughtfully planned amenities. While we have several strategies under each of these priorities, we're just going to give you a sample. And so 3 that I wanted to talk about a little bit this morning, and we'll talk about more as we go through, are attracting privately owned entertainment and family-oriented amenities. Going through the strategic plan and talking to businesses and community members all the time, everybody's looking for more opportunities to do things with their families here in the county without having to travel out. So that's something we're going to focus on. Expanding access to healthcare services. We know that that is a critical need here, and we want people to be able to access that here without having to go outside of the county. And partnering to increase childcare accessibility. We all know how that touches every other area and every other priority of our lives and our workforce. So those are 3 key strategies that we'll start with today.
Thank you, Rebecca. Our second strategic priority is championing the increase of quality and accessible workforce housing. And that will be Connie Dean.
Yep. And as he said, we looked at one of our priorities to be championing the increase of quality, accessible workforce housing. Now you may wonder, why increase housing in Queen Anne's County? Why focus on quality, accessible, and affordable housing for employees? Or even, why would we need to champion an increase in housing availability? Well, we know that workforce housing is vital for economic growth and for stability of the community. To illustrate this, I have to say we spend a lot of time visiting businesses, and very often we hear some of the same needs from all businesses. And one of the big things we hear often is that businesses throughout the county are concerned about housing for their employees. A few examples would be some employees struggle with finding affordable local housing. Some travel a long distance to get to work in Queen Anne's County once they've decided to work here. And some strong potential employees, applicants that have been interviewed and offered positions, find it hard to find available and affordable housing in order for them to accept those job offers. Those are things that many businesses we hear are very concerned about. So the availability of affordable housing is a critical factor in enabling our businesses to recruit talent, to grow their businesses, and to also contribute to the county's economic development. That being said, we've decided that some of our strategies that we want to focus on in this area are based on partnerships and education. And as Rebecca said, we have a number of focuses, but these are two I wanted to focus on today. That in the partnership area, we're looking to develop and maintain strong partnerships with numerous different departments within the county, as well as at the state and federal entities. We plan to work even more with our Queen Anne's County Department of Community Services, Division of Housing and Family Services, and also collaborating with Department of Planning and Zoning. In reference to the education, I'm referring to educating the public about the importance of affordable housing. By addressing these housing concerns of our businesses, we're helping to sustain and expand our businesses and thus our economy. We're also helping young employees, young families to be able to stay local, to stay here, which is what we want, and even bring others here. In turn, this will also help our businesses and our economy. So the more the public learns and becomes familiar with our workplace housing needs, the more likely they are to support the efforts to develop a strong inventory of accessible and affordable housing.
Thank you, Connie.
Sure.
Our third is expanding transportation, and Heather Tonelli will tackle that.
So just like workforce housing and community needs, we hear quite often when we go out to businesses that we need transportation offerings, not only so that our families can get to work, but also our visitors as well. And so we're going to prioritize connectivity and looking at it holistically for different approaches. One of those approaches is water-based transit. The county currently just finished up on a ferry feasibility study working with 5 other counties that are up and down the Chesapeake Bay. In fact, all the counties are becoming involved now to look at a regional ferry system. We have some water-based taxis that are coming on board or are on board currently. We also hope to work with their current trail system, which is amazing, and a lot of visitors come here just for that, and I think our residents use those widely as well, but hopefully to continue to grow that trail system, to be able to use it as a connector via bike or walking to get to schools, to get to work as options. And then also our on-demand service, our county ride. We also envision that will be focused on and further supported. And the Economic Development Commission, who has worked on this strategic plan, and it will be their plan moving forward, really wants to focus on supporting and engaging the local partners in our community to make it happen. Some of the implementation steps are things that we're looking to focus on is, again, the ferry. The next steps, now that the study's done, Anne Arundel County has just received a grant to buy 2 to 3 ferries for commuting, and one of those stops is envisioned to be in the Mattapique area. So that's one step that's currently underway. Looking at marketing and promoting our bike trails and our walking trails, they are currently being expanded down here in Route 8, and there's a great plan to move forward to connect the whole county over time eventually, but to be able to promote those and use those as connectors and alternatives to getting out on the roads. And the last implementation step or focus strategy that we plan to move forward with is working with our regional and county partners. One thing that we heard that was super great at our last conference we did in October is that our county ride is still free. And by doing that, they've been able to expand their offerings to be able to help people to get to work, to get to their jobs, as well as to get to the colleges, to help students get to internships. A lot of those things are in work. So those are the three strategies that we're going to be working on to help move this important focus forward.
Thank you, Heather. Our fourth strategy for the economic development is tourism that April will be talking about.
So tourism is a major economic driver in Queen Anne's County. It supports local businesses and creates jobs. We have a strong tourism market currently, and we want to continue to make sure that we develop and grow that industry here. The strategic plan focuses on elevating tourism across the county while also maintaining the quality of life for residents. Just a few of the ways that we're going to focus on doing that includes building ag tourism, resources and opportunities, including marketing toolkits, supporting the expansion of the number of quality and accessibility of history-focused offerings. That includes the supporting role of a heritage tourism coordinator, which we have hired, that will be joining our team this month, so we're excited about the opportunity that that's going to bring to us. And then another way that we're going to do that is conducting an audit of the current wedding market and continuing to develop that. So it's a pretty mature market here, but that doesn't mean there's plenty of room for growth and continue to build that, especially considering we have venues like the one we're sitting in. We're very well known for it, so there's going to be a lot of opportunity in that area.
Thank you. Our fifth and final strategic plan for the next 5 years will be talked about by Rebecca, and that's facilitating business growth.
Yeah, we want to create an environment and ecosystem in Queen Anne's County where businesses of all sizes can really thrive. So the strategic plan is focusing on reducing the barriers to our existing companies and businesses. Are we good? Oh, you're good. And streamlining access to resources for our startups and entrepreneurs. So this particular priority has 13 strategies, so I'm not going to go over all of those with you this morning, but there are 5 that I thought I would bring up, and we'll talk about again a little bit more in depth later. Streamlining the business resources. So we'll be launching, or ideally this year, a centralized user-friendly website. Oh, okay, sorry. So it's going to include how-to guides for our startups and our new businesses. And just really simplify and make the information that our businesses need accessible to them through this website. We're going to expand workforce training, and that'll be Connie. That's her. She's the expert on that, and is always fabulous at it. So you'll continue to see her do really good work on expanding workforce. Entrepreneurial support. So connecting our entrepreneurs with our business mentors, with the Small Business Development Center and other resources that they need, ensuring competitive incentives. I think we've talked about that. I've heard that mentioned a few times already today. That'll be a big focus of ours, and really assessing where we are and if there's gaps in those incentives. And then strengthening our municipal partnerships. That's something that we do, I think, uniquely well in Queen Anne's County, is working with our municipalities to figure out what it is they want and how they want to grow, and giving them the tools they need to do that.
Thank you. I'm kind of getting the hook here, so we only have a few more minutes, so we're going to move to the panel discussion. And the first question up is for Rebecca on the sense of community and quality of life. What are your thoughts about the overall quality of life for Queen Anne's County and our residents while maintaining the greatness of our county?
Yeah, so there's several key factors that really, let's see. I have a lot I have here, so I'm going to try to get through all of them and really quickly, because I think we have about 1 minute. Yeah. So attracting, again, like I mentioned before, those entertainment and family-friendly amenities, encouraging businesses like family rec centers, theaters, experiential dining venues, really get people here, enhancing those public amenities, increasing access to healthcare, childcare, grocery stores, and recreational facilities. Celebrating celebrating local culture and traditions. That's something we don't want to forget to do here. That's something we do so well, preserving and promoting our local events like the crab basket tree lighting and the Bay Bridge Run and the county fair. And then another big thing that we talked about through the whole strategic plan process was balancing growth with conservation. So we want to grow, but we want to grow in the way that feels right for us and that's balanced. And so I'm going to leave it there and we'll go to the next.
Thank you, Rebecca. Heather, workforce housing. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, we're going to hear a lot about that in the coming panels that are coming up, so I'm actually going to skip that one if that's okay.
That is fine. That is
knowing
fine.
that we're going to hear from the experts, and I'm sure you'd rather hear from them.
So I'll ask April to fill in for you on tourism. April, what are your thoughts about tourism?
Well, I have a lot of thoughts, but we have 2 minutes. So I think there are some unique opportunities in the next 5 years that the strategic plan is going to help with. Sports tourism is something that I think we could really take advantage of in the next few years. We've been working with Team Maryland, which is a partnership with the state and the other counties, and Casey Schweitzer helps on that as well. The ag and heritage tourism, I think is an opportunity I've already touched on. Utilizing the 4-H park, I think is something that's going to be big for us, and expanding our wedding market. But last but not least, one of the ones I'm most excited about, I think, is, do I need this? Group travel and corporate travel. This is something that I think is going to be a critical market for us because it fills that Monday through Wednesday, which is that window that we really need, and it can also fill our shoulder seasons, which is important to us. The summer and the weekends we're already really busy, but finding those opportunities and filling them with something else I think is going to be important.
All righty. And the last one is business growth.
On the business growth end, I wanted to mention that, and about collaboration, that
We heard you. Keep on.
Can you hear me? Yeah. Let me just focus. I wanted to touch base about the collaboration, how important that is between the public and the private sectors in driving business growth. I'd like to mention that our Queen Anne's County Public Schools, which are represented here today, and Chesapeake College, who's also represented here, I know Amber and Dave Harper are here, that it's really important that we all work together, both of those. I don't hear it. I can't tell what's working. Anyway, the Chesapeake College and Queen Anne's County Public Schools, along with our business community, it's really important that we all collaborate together. By strengthening and collaborating between all those entities, we are working together to drive our business growth. Students learn in the classrooms of our Queen Anne's County Public Schools and Chesapeake College, and if we connect them in with the businesses and what it looks like in each different jobs and become more aware of what careers are out there, it certainly will help make the education even stronger that we're combining by bringing, which we are doing, bringing businesses into the classrooms, taking students out to internships, and we have more and more very career-focused internships. And the link that's making all this happen that's newer is that when we have implemented career coaches at each of the high schools, which has now become the link between business community, Chesapeake College, and the schools. I have a lot more to say, but I know we're done.
Can we give a great hand for these folks? In closing, for the Economic Development Commission, we really truly thank you for being here. You businesses are the heartbeat of our county, and we're just grateful. Please, if you have ideas or you need to talk with the commissioners, send us, call us, write us, text us. We'd love to meet with you, and we're just grateful again. I'd like to introduce Todd Mon and his panelists, and they will be talking about the vision for progress, tackling infrastructure, housing, healthcare, and education challenges. Thanks again, folks.
Thanks for being here on such a blustery day today, so great turnout. So I'm Todd Mon, the County Administrator, and we have a very distinguished panel here today, and this panel is going to give us a brief overview of some of the county's achievements, challenges, and opportunities facing our core economic development priorities here in the county, including healthcare, housing, infrastructure, major projects, and of course, education. Before I introduce my panelists here, I want to just say quickly that Commissioner Jim Moran, our at-large commissioner, he was supposed to be here today, but Commissioner Wilson has graciously stepped into his shoes. Unfortunately, Jim has the stomach bug today, and he texted me this morning early and said he just could not make it. So he'd much rather be here, I'm sure, than what he's involved with right now. So anyway, let's start off with the introductions. First, I'll introduce Commissioner Wilson. You've heard from him a little bit earlier today. County Commissioner, he's been County Commissioner since his initial appointment by the Governor Larry Hogan in June of 2015, filling the remainder of a 4-year term. He was then elected in 2018 and then re-elected in 2022, currently representing District 1. Throughout his tenure here as County Commissioner, he has been a very strong advocate for expanding the trades program in our local schools and enhancing broadband access in Queen Anne's County. He was born and raised in Baltimore and Arnold, Maryland. Jack has been a resident of the county since 1992, graduated from Severna Park High School in '84, and later completed the Steamfitters Local 438 apprenticeship program with a career spanning over 3 decades in the trades. Jack brings us a wealth of hands-on experience in his public service role, and he has a great passion for community engagement and local government activities. So that's our first panelist. Our second panelist is Laura Wilson. Laura is currently the director of Rural Healthcare Transformation at the University of Maryland Shore Medical Center in Chestertown. She is also an EDC board member. Prior to that, Laura served as the executive director of the Maryland Rural Health Association and senior director of grant development and administrator for the hospital-owned physician practices at Garrett Regional Medical Center. She has also served as an independent consultant for the Merchant McIntyre in Washington, D.C. Laura holds a bachelor's degree in psychology from the University of Maryland and a master's degree in health system administration from Georgetown University. Next, we have Tom Aid. He is a principal at Green Street Housing. Tom has been developing affordable housing for more than a decade. Tom has a very competent understanding of the various programs for new construction and preservation of affordable housing. Tom has been instrumental in crafting policy and competitive scoring criteria in Maryland through his efforts with the Maryland Affordable Housing Coalition, and is always fighting to ensure that funding preferences do not overlook our rural areas. He is involved in every phase of the development process, from prospecting, feasibility and planning, financing, construction oversight, and asset management. Tom has built a systematic approach that ensures successful, high-quality results for Green Street Housing, and we will hear about one of his projects here locally in Queen Anne's County shortly. And lastly, at the end there, we have Dr. Matthew Kibler. Dr. Kibler is currently the Assistant Superintendent for our Queen Anne's County Public Schools. His primary role there includes overseeing curriculum and instruction. In addition, Dr. Kibler is the implementation coordinator for the Blueprint for Maryland's Future, where he has led initiatives like expanding the pre-K from half-day to full-day in our elementary schools here in the county. Prior to joining Queen Anne's County, he worked at Washington College. During his tenure there, he was promoted to the position of Assistant Vice President for Institutional Effectiveness and Analytics, in which he oversaw the Institutional Research Department, the Registrar's Office, and the Office of Information Technology. Prior to the college, his career started as a high school math teacher here in Maryland. Dr. Kibler holds a doctorate degree in education from Wilmington University, a Master's of Applied Statistics from Penn State. Hey, we are Penn State. And a bachelor's degree in mathematics from Washington College. Okay, so we'll dive into the questions here, and we're going to do a little round robin so we can get everybody participating. Let's start off with education. So, Dr. Kibler, within Queen Anne's County Public School Systems, tell us about one of your most notable achievements this past year.
Sure. So thank you for having me here. So just when we talk about successes, I do want to start first. I know there's been a lot of talk about funding, and education's kind of the top of the list and how expensive it is with the Blueprint. But I do want to thank the partnerships we have with our commissioners, economic development. My colleagues across the state, not everybody shares the great relationship that we have here, and we really do thank the partnerships that we have. When we do talk about our schools, one of the things I'm most excited about is our expansion of pre-K from half-day to full-day. In just 3 years, we went from 100 full-day slots to 340 full-day slots right now. We do hear in the state that it's a universal pre-K. That's not truly universal. It's universal for students that come from families below 300% of the poverty line, multilingual families, and special ed. But I am happy to report with this expansion, as of this year, we're a year ahead of schedule, but we are serving all of the students in the county that meet those criteria, and that's a huge celebration for us, and I'm really thankful for that.
All right, thank you, Dr. Kibler. Moving on to housing, here we're looking for a perspective on housing challenges, opportunities for development, and how this particular sector is intersecting with the broader community and economic issues. So, Tom, can you tell us a little bit about Green Street Housing and your work in the development of affordable housing, and more specifically, the project here in Queen Anne's County at Slippery Hill?
Yeah, thanks, Todd. So Green Street Housing is located in Salisbury, Maryland, and our focus on development of affordable multifamily rental housing covers Maryland, Delaware, and Virginia. We focus on new construction and rehab projects, and today we have projects under construction in Ashburn, Virginia, Silver Springs, Anne Arundel County, Salisbury, and we just finished the second and third phases at the Village at Slippery Hill in Graysonville, which I'll give a couple of details about. It's 186 rental apartments with 54 of those units being targeted towards elderly, and then the balance of them being targeted for families. All of the family units, I'm happy to report, are fully leased. And the project itself has been built, it's financed with low-income housing tax credits, to roughly in excess of $50 million in total cost. We received more than $35 million in low-income housing tax credits administered through Maryland, and more than $8 million through state loan program funds. So I think it's important that we all acknowledge that some of those dollars do come into the county. The project itself, serving a range of incomes from 30% of the area median income through primarily 60% of the area median income, but with some units that are market rate. We've got mixed income and mixed use, so we have some commercial space if anybody is interested. And I think that if we're talking about some of the challenges, we encounter high costs of construction with that project, and we to be competitive for the financing for projects in the state, we have to depend on the county. And so the county in this case was very instrumental in economic resources for the project.
Okay, thank you, Tom. All right, moving into healthcare, we'll ask Laura to give us an overview at Shore Regional Health, some of the notable achievements and challenges and opportunities that she's had over the past year.
Yeah. So,
There we go.
So I would say the biggest, I think that's working, the biggest achievement that everyone probably is aware of in 2024 was the groundbreaking for the new Regional Medical Center. No, I'll take this one. Okay, is that better? Great. So again, I'm going to just say a huge thank you to the county commissioners for the pledge of $5 million that supported this hospital. This is a $540 million project coming to our 5 midshore counties. And we had support from every county, both just in supporting it, verbally, written, but also financially. So we had funding for this project through bonds, public, private philanthropy, federal grants, and state grants. And this is a huge, huge project for our community. It's definitely to me, the rising tide that raises all ships for healthcare in our midshore counties. I think about it a lot, kind of like what happened in Annapolis when the hospital moved from downtown to Route 50, and think about how large Anne Arundel Medical Center has grown and what a huge lift that was for Anne Arundel County. I see that coming here. Again, it's spread out over the 5 midshore counties, but it's a huge It's a huge project. It's 230 acres. And the timeline, just so that in case you all haven't heard the presentation, we're increasing our beds from 118 to 147, and they're shifting around, providing more behavioral health beds. We're going to have 25 dedicated observation beds, which is really huge, so that patients that are coming through the ED that don't need actual inpatient beds will have a place before they're discharged. So that's something that's really, really needed. And right now, when we have holds in our hospitals, it's because we don't have the beds for them in that observation status. So the timeline, obviously, you've seen a lot of dirt being moved around. Construction is going to begin this year. The completion of the construction is 2027, and occupancy in 2028. So that would be our biggest accomplishment that we're working on. Definitely our biggest challenge is workforce. We hear about it all the time. It's not unique to Queen Anne's County. It's not unique to the Eastern Shore. This is a healthcare workforce challenge across the entire country, especially in rural health. But also, as the commissioner said, providers, physicians, staff love to work in brand new state-of-the-art healthcare facilities. So we really believe that by building this new hospital, it will bring more staff, healthcare staff from all shapes and sizes to our community. I have more information, but I think I'll pass it on and save it for the next one.
All right. Thank you, Laura.
Yep.
All right, moving on to infrastructure. Commissioner Corcoran did an outstanding job earlier today talking about some notable major projects that we have in the county ongoing. So I'm going to ask Commissioner Wilson, what are some of the county and state initiatives for infrastructure for the future that can help us tackle some of the major infrastructure projects that we have in the foreseeable future?
So I think the gist of this question is trying to get to state funding. Specifically, the biggest one that has really been a challenge here in Queen Anne's County is what is the HURs, which is the highway user revenue. Over the years, I guess all the way back to 2011, there was a huge cut. The county at one time received in excess of $9.8 million from the state through the HUR, which was comprised of gasoline tax, registration costs, titles, licenses, etc. Since then, we are now, I think we got a grand total last year of about $830,000. And that's to take care of over 500 miles of roads here in Queen Anne's County that belong to the county, from plowing them to maintaining the surfaces and things of that nature. There's been a push over the last 3 to 4 years among stakeholders, both at the county and municipal levels, to try to get those funds restored. But as many of you probably are thinking in your head, right now we are on a push to put electric vehicles on the road, which obviously affects the amount of tax that you're going to get on fuel when you have an electric vehicle. And the state has tackled or tried to tackle that over the last couple of years to figure out how they're going to backfill that money, and unfortunately have been unsuccessful. They were going to do an EV registration, which was supposed to go in this past July, but really never materialized into much, at $125 a car. Everybody in this room knows what you pay taxes on your gas that you're putting in your gas vehicle. So it's created a very large shortage, not only for now, but for the foreseeable future. So we here in the county, in order to maintain our roads, have had to come up with an additional, and it varies anywhere from $7 to $10 million a year to take care of our roads. We've been very diligent about doing systemic upgrades on a 5 to 7 year rollover process, whether it's tar and chip or asphalt overlays, things of that nature. So that's one thing from the state's perspective down to the county that's constantly a moving target and is always kind of a source of heavy thinking when we go into budget time. And again, that's the other thing that we have that's going on dynamically in terms of expansion, and probably the housing panel will get into this a little more, is infrastructure for affordable housing, which again is another topic that's going to come up. In order to get affordable housing, a lot of times you need infrastructure because you need density to make it affordable from the developer standpoint. And in Queen Anne's County right now, for those that live in the Kent Island area, know that our sewer plant here, we just got re-rated, but again, it's literally, we have 300,000 gallons, which doesn't go very far when you're trying to increase density or provide housing. So that puts the onus on our towns to where there is capacity for growth, but there's no capacity on some of their sewer systems that exist. And getting that money and funding, I know Centerville's in the process now, but it's about a $45 million endeavor. And most of your small towns don't have that kind of money. So I would say those two issues right now from the state level are probably our two biggest challenges moving forward, especially from an economic development standpoint.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner Wilson. And while you have the microphone, let me just ask you real quick, are there any projects in the pipeline in the next few years that you're truly excited about? Because I know you're going to bring home as many state dollars as you can as our MACo president. First one since Leonard Smith. We heard about that earlier. So
yeah, obviously the one, I think, in my mind, the biggest one we have out there that's a must-do and has been a must-do for probably the last 4 to 5 years is our detention center. Luckily, we're going to have an opportunity to do it in a regional, from a regional basis, which honestly is probably the best way to do a lot of these projects, whether it's law enforcement, detention centers, our community college is a prime example of how well that works, because then you're pulling multiple resources and you have more households to support a lot of these projects. And the detention center is probably the first in many that will become a regionalized capital project. We took what initially would have been an overall cost for the county out of pocket at around $55 million, and with the regional approach, we're probably only going to have to fund roughly between 19 and 21 million, which is a huge savings not only to our bond debt over the long term, but to every county citizen in their property taxes moving forward. A couple other one, and exciting, especially up here on the island, is going to be to try and get that the Cross Island Trail connected with the South County Trail across Route 50. It comes with its own set of challenges, especially with the possibility of a new bridge crossing coming somewhere in that corridor that may impede where that can go. But we are in the stages of looking at the best location for that, and I think it'll be a huge win. I think it'll take the total trail mileage to just short of 25 miles from end to end if you were to go from Roanoke all the way down to Graysonville. Also looking to expand it past Graysonville all the way up to Queenstown is the next effort there. And finally, a big one, especially for our emergency services, is to get the water main connector done between Kent Island and Graysonville so that we can have reliable pressure on both sides of the narrows there. So those are probably three of the biggest.
all right, thank you. Okay, back to healthcare. So we heard earlier that our aging population is increasing in Queen Anne's County. We all know that. Over half of our population is over 50 years old. We're anticipating this trend to continue with population growth over the next 5 years with new mature adults coming to Queen Anne's County. So what specific initiatives are in place to ensure that healthcare infrastructure can meet the unique needs of our seniors, our mature adults, especially in our rural underserved areas?
Yeah, so just want to mention a couple stats about what we've done over the past couple years to kind of help prepare for this, and then talk about some things that we're working on. So obviously in 2002, we opened the Kent Island Urgent Care. It's one of 8 urgent care centers across the state, and it has one of the highest volumes. It immediately was a need that was met, and we're hoping that that's really helping to fill that gap. Also, we currently have 6 nurse practitioners in Centerville. We're working on renovations right now and actively recruiting for another physician, so that would be a 7th provider there. This past August, we brought in a full-time provider at the primary care office in Queenstown, and I'm happy to announce that in April we'll have a 2nd full-time nurse practitioner. So those are things that we're trying to do to fill that primary care and urgent care gap in the certain parts of the county. So in terms of also supporting the elderly population, we have developed several, they're called short community outreach teams. This is a group of a nurse, a social worker, and 2 community health advocates that go out into the community and meet patients where they are in their home, do home inspections, help with medication reconciliation, help connect them to services. It's very similar to the mobile integrated health program that we have here in Queen Anne's County, and our short community outreach teams work hand in hand with this MIC program in Queen Anne's County to help reach all of the patients that overlap. This is an effort to do follow-up when patients are discharged from the hospital, or to do follow-up when patients have information from their primary care to help keep patients out of the hospital, or to help keep them at the level of care that they need. Do they need behavioral health services? Do they need primary care services? Helping connected, because a lot of times patients really need help connecting. It also can help with helping understand their insurances, especially with the aging population, understanding their health insurance eligibility. That's something we're also doing, helping make sure they're connected to their health department to get the services that they need. So I see the 2 minutes, and I don't want to take up any more time.
Excellent, thank you. Okay, back to housing. So we all know that Queen Anne's County is not unique to the challenges that we all face in the shortage of housing supply and affordable housing options. So Tom, where do you see our county's opportunities and challenges going forward?
So from a housing supply, we've been, I guess I'll say this, when we began the development of the village at Slippery Hill, it was 2012, and we actually have never worked with a county, a rural county that was so upbeat and advocated for the project. As we compare the project, and if we talk about housing across the state, the problems live within the resources. And everything about affordable housing is the ability for resources outside of the state and the federal government to come into the project. So the gap always looks to the locals. And Queen Anne's County being supportive, they brought forth a couple of mechanisms of economic incentive, including a reduction in property taxes, a waiver of impact fees, and I would just say, compared to the other non-metros, significant resources. The project wouldn't have happened without it. I will say, when we look at the other counties where you see more projects being built and the alignment with state priorities, we see alignment with transit. We see areas where other counties have significantly more resources. But I think we're doing really well here, and I think it's going to be eyes on how the resources can continue to flow to affordable housing.
Okay, great. Thank you, Tom. And back to education. So, Dr. Kibler, the county economic development and tourism, we all have a strong relationship with our public schools as a means to develop future workforce pipelines for supporting comprehensively our efforts to develop a strong CTE program and technology career trades focused curriculum. So can you tell us a little bit about the current successes that we've had and some plans that the public school system has to enhance that program going forward?
Great, thanks. And you skipped to the question. I was going to turn my challenge question into that one if you didn't do it. So thank you thank you very much. So this is really where you all in this room come in to play, and we thank you for your partnership. I want to thank Connie Dean back there and all her hard work in partnership with our CTE supervisor, Adam Tolley. With the blueprint, 45% of our graduates by 2031 need to have an industry-recognized credential or an apprenticeship, and that's where the people in this room really come into play and help us. If you look at the economic development scorecard, I didn't get paid to put a plug in for this, but you'll notice that your work with our schools are all throughout this, and we appreciate that. One thing we're doing right now is really evaluating all of our CTE programs to see where they align with the needs of the community, where can we find those industry recognized credentials, where can we find the youth apprenticeships in the community, are there programs we maybe have to sunset so we can develop more. I'm really excited to announce we're in the planning stage and hope to have an electrical program up and running next year, and we're going to see that thumbs up down there? So we're going to keep looking for areas to do that. Is it HVAC next? What is it? And we thank you for all of your work in partnering with us.
All right, thank you, Dr. Kibler, and I see I'm getting the hook back there from Ms. Tonelli, but many thanks to our very distinguished group here. We could go on, I'm sure, for another hour easily with questions and answers, but I appreciate everyone being here today, and there will be an opportunity for the audience to ask, and we'll have some questions, so please note those for later this afternoon or this morning. Next, I would like to introduce Commissioner Phil Dumino, and Vice President of the Board. He is going to lead the next panel for the Developers Roundtable.
So I know that that we're running a little bit behind schedule, but do me a favor, everybody stand up in their chairs. Everybody stand up from their chairs. Everybody stand up if you're able to. All right, big stretch, a couple twists, right? Just want to make sure you guys are wide awake because we always save the best for last here in Queen Anne's County, and that would be this platform. So I do have the pleasure of moderating this last section of our presentation. So I want to take this opportunity to thank my dear friend Jody Schultz for letting me borrow his readers, because I have come to the conclusion that 12-size font is no longer part of my capabilities. Shannon Smith is the principal of Reliable Group. With 34 years engagement in commercial real estate development, Shannon Smith's journey began at the Empire Corporation and Empire Management Services. Spanning 2 decades, in 2008, they founded Arundel Properties Management, serving as a commercial property manager for local development, overseeing over 400,000 square feet of office and retail space. While holding a general contractor's license, Shannon excelled in diverse commercial construction projects, specializing in tenant improvements. A pivotal merger in 2010 led the establishment of Reliable Real Estate Services and Reliable Commercial Construction. This propelled remarkable growth in the property management portfolio and general contracting endeavors, including $45 million in new ground-up construction, alongside their expertise in tenant fit-outs. So, quick round of applause for Shannon Smith. Next on our panel, we have Barry Waterman, associate broker for Coldwell Banker. Barry Waterman is a real estate broker and residential developer. His career spans more than 40 years, exclusively working in Queen Anne's County. Barry's father opened up the brokerage in 1967. Barry joined in 1984, and his son Kevin joined in 2009. He is well recognized as an authority in local land use regulations and has previously served on our chair of County Planning Commission. He is currently serving on our Board of Appeals as well. A round of applause for Barry Waterman. And last and certainly not least on our panel is Mason Popham, commercial realtor for Thomas Park Commercial, and recently our newly appointed to the Economic Development Commission. So thank you very much for that. As the head of Thomas Park Commercial, Mason represents tenants, landlords, buyers, and sellers around the state of Maryland for all their leasing and investment sales needs. Mason graduated with a bachelor's degree in economics from the University of Virginia. So what we're going to do is going to try to get 2 questions each, but I know that we're running a little bit behind, and I know that they want to allow for some questions afterwards. So start with Barry. The first question: residential development is key to accommodating population growth. What trends are you seeing in demand for housing in Queen Anne's County, and how are you adapting to those trends?
The demand for housing in Queen Anne's County is strong. It's been strong as long as I can remember. Last year, there were 867 houses sold through the MLS in Queen Anne's County. 250 of those were new houses. But if you take out Four Seasons, Churchill Hunt, and Perry's Retreat, because they're all approaching build-out, there were less than 100 new houses built in Queen Anne's County. Keep in mind that we graduate 500 to 600 students from our high school every year, and we lose something around 100 people who pass away every year, and we have a structural problem that we don't have enough housing for who we have. That affects all of us, but particularly business people, because you want to be able to find employees. Our median price of housing, that's great that it's $543,000, because that means our houses are worth a lot, and if we somehow didn't need a house anymore, we'd have a lot of money. But it's also bad news. It's our median price is twice the median price of Caroline County and 50% higher than Kent County or Cecil County. So demand is part of that, but supply is also a part of that. And as Commissioner Wilson pointed out, our sewer plant is about tapped out. In the foreseeable future, we will not have any more sewer. The plant's not expandable unless the federal government and the state of Maryland, Pennsylvania, Virginia, and Delaware agree to change the TMDL limits. Most of the towns are either tapped out or are close to tapped out, and while their plants, in theory, can be expanded, that's assuming they can get permits and assuming that they can finance those plants. So we have a big problem coming up, and in terms of how do you adapt to that, I'm not sure that you can overcome that conundrum. We have to realize that we have that issue coming up. And there are some things we can do that might supply or increase the supply of housing, such as ADUs or other high-density development that can be built on what sewer we have. And if we concentrate that on the more vulnerable people in our society, being the first-time home buyers, and the people who serve your dinner or work in jobs that don't pay that much money, then we can buy some time there. But we don't have a good answer in the long term. Things are great now. If you own a house, you've made a lot of money in the last year, and you made a ton of money in the last 5 years. But I don't know where we go 15 years from now.
Thank you. Shannon, what role do you believe mixed-use developments, and that's a combination of retail, office space, and residential, will play in the future of commercial development here in Queen Anne's County?
Good morning. So I'm a part of a group that's developing what's known as the Bell property. We're creating a new development that we're going to be calling Ken Island Crossing, I'm sorry. That is a mixed-use development that we're creating. Part of that development, we have an 88-room, 102-bed assisted living that's going to be part of that facility. On the same grounds, we're going to have a 22,000 square foot grocery store pad site, our grocery store site. We're working with a grocer now closely for an 18,500 square foot grocery store. We have two 10,000 foot retail spaces, and then 3 pad sites for restaurant or fast food service. The mixed use is convenient for those living in the facility, and it helps with the car traffic. Having the grocery stores and the retail spaces right there, right next to Ken Island the Cross Island Trail, our proximity to Four Seasons and Gibson's Grant, we think it's going to be a natural fit to have that type of facility there. As we know, Queen Anne's County needs the senior housing. We've been lacking in that, and there's no real grocer. There is no grocer on the north side of Route 50. So we think altogether that's actually going to help the traffic flow and the population of that area. We're involved with a few mixed-use projects, larger scale over across the bridge. Watchapel Town Center would be one of them, but we don't have the population to be anywhere that big. Our overall site, I think, is just right for our community. So.
Thank you. Mason, as a commercial realtor, what trends are you seeing in the demand for office, retail, and industrial spaces in Queen Anne's County? What sectors are driving this demand?
I'd be remiss if I didn't use this opportunity to plug Tom Aid and Green Street Housing's commercial space. So if you're interested, please reach out to me. You're welcome, Tom. On the office side of things, the office sector has been probably the most polarizing asset class in commercial real estate over the past several years. A lot of economists were predicting that the work from home trend was going to totally wipe out demand for office space. Thankfully, that didn't happen. In 2024, we saw office demand continue to creep back up from the lows of, call it 75, 80% in a lot of the downtown CBDs to the 85, 90, and even 90%, 95% in some of the suburban metros like Queen Anne's County. The demand for office space has certainly shifted from kind of large floor plates, which are all kind of exterior offices, interior cubicles, small break rooms, to now flexible and smaller spaces. So if you take, for example, a company that has 100 employees, they used to have 90 to 100 employees in the office every single day. Now they have probably 70 to 75. So what that's caused them to do is, number one, decrease their footprint a little bit, not necessarily one for one, but also just to reorganize some of that space towards lounge areas with TVs and nap pods, and I've seen driving golf simulators in a lot of offices, and things to just bring people back into the office and make them want to be there. Co-working has also been in high demand. We have a lot of residents in Queen Anne's County who work in Baltimore, DC, in the northern part of the county, and Philly or the Delmarva Peninsula. So co-working allows people to get out of their house and away from their kids and go work in an office space without the commute. So thankfully, we've got a lot of owners and operators popping those kinds of concepts up around the county. On the retail front, it's a bit of a mixed bag. The good news is there's strong demand for well-located, highly visible retail where you've got, just obviously up and down Route 50. Tenants are willing to pay a premium for that kind of visibility. That's really the kind of local boutiques, the hair salons, the even a lot of medical users like dentists. We call them MedTail users. So that's been really good to see. On the other side of that coin, big box retail is starting to struggle a little bit. Unfortunately, we're experiencing that here in Chester with the Big Lots closing. It's really hard for those big boxes to justify the revenue per square foot that they're generating relative to the rent they're paying, when a lot of that can be done via e-commerce. Experiential real estate, retail specifically, is going to continue, I think, to fill that void, so I don't see that issue being exacerbated far into the future. Not much to say about industrial real estate that everybody doesn't know. It's been the belle of the ball for investors over the past several years. E-commerce is driving that. So logistics, warehouse, distribution centers are all in very high demand. How they're presented, that construction and the trades are one of our largest contributing sectors in the county. And so those users all have what we call flex or light industrial space. We've got a great need for it in Queen Anne's County, and we're uniquely, positioned to service that through the DMV and the Delmarva Peninsula.
Thank you, Mason. So I just got the card, so we're going to jump into our speed round. I feel like this is a game show. I've always wanted to be a game show host. So gentlemen, if you could please keep your answers to 3 minutes each. We'll go into questions 2 for you. Barry, given the development often requires significant infrastructure investment, how do you work with the county to ensure the transportation, water, and other infrastructure needs are met alongside new development?
For my company, that's pretty easy. We're a relatively small-scale developer, so we look at where there is capacity before we ever plan any type of development. And even for larger developments, the county's APFO ordinance assures that all those things are met before a project can move forward.
Okay, thank you. Shannon, what role does community feedback and stakeholder engagement play in your development process, and how do you ensure projects are aligned with the needs of the community?
Well, for our project, we worked very closely with Queen Anne's County with what we're building. The independent living derived from those conversations. The grocery store was always our goal and our intended use for that site. But the exterior finishes that we've developed for the project overall, making it all work together, there was concern about it looking like a commercial project when you're crossing over the bridge at Dominion Road. We've been very sensitive to that. We're going to be well landscaped, a lot of trees, a lot of greenery. We've created a lot of green space along the north side of the project, which runs along the nature trail. We're going to capitalize on the fact that we're so close to Ken Island Fire Department. Out on the point, we're planning a first responders type of memorial seating area there. Just different things that we want it to blend with the community. We live in a beautiful area. We just want to add to that. We don't want to take away from that. So that's really been our goal through this whole process.
Thank you. And Mason, your final question. What role does infrastructure such as broadband, transportation, and utilities play in attracting commercial development to the county And are there any areas where improvement is necessary?
Yeah, so we've heard a lot about infrastructure from a kind of utilities, water and sewer standpoint today, so I'll focus on transportation. Everyone knows that in the summers here on Sundays and Fridays, it's really bad. You can't really get around, and that it really crushes the retail users kind of off of Route 50 when our back roads clog up. And so I don't know that there's a silver bullet for kind of keeping people off 50, but that's something that I think we need to continue to work on and develop, because a lot of the feedback I've heard from people is they blame a lot of their slowness on that traffic. And so, yeah, retail users, office users don't want to deal with it, and I think that's something we need to focus on.
Okay. So another round of applause for our three panelists. So remember, the developers that decide to do projects in our community really create jobs, they create tax base, and meet the needs of what our community is looking for. So again, I want to personally thank these three guys for agreeing to be on our panel, and any of the other business owners and developers that we have in our community. We do support you. Thank you very much. Heather?
Please feel free to stay around and ask questions to the presenters one-on-one or to our commissioners. We're going to be here for a little bit longer, or communicate among yourselves. Again, thank you for coming, and make sure to take one of our economic development scorecards, which is hopefully give you a bright picture of what's ahead for Queen Anne's County. Thank you so much.